Hi everyone, it's Anya from Cooking with Plants and welcome to my kitchen. So for today, I'm actually not doing a recipe, but I want to talk to you about 7 amazing ways that I like to add a salty flavor without actually adding salt. So because I have heart issues, or I have had a history of heart issues, I try to avoid salt. It also contributes to things like stomach cancer and it activates your saliva glands, so then you end up wanting to eat extra foods. So people that have issues with overeating, it's great to actually avoid eating excess salt. And again, because it absorbs and holds extra water in your body, then it's going to put extra pressure on your heart, on your arteries, on your kidneys and on your brain. And then it can lead to things like heart attacks and strokes and all types of kidney issues, those types of things. So it's a really good idea to avoid added salt in your diet and to use other substitutes so you can get nice natural flavors and really add flavor without the added salts that are going to have negative health effects on your body. So my favorite 7 things to add instead of salt are all in front of me right now, and I'm going to go through each one of these ingredients with you. So the first ingredient I like to use in place of salt is miso paste. So miso paste is often made with fermented soybeans, or it can actually be made with fermented rice or chickpeas at times. There's all different ingredients that can be used, but the common variety is soy. But if you're allergic to soy, have a look for the brown rice miso, for example, and use that instead. And while this usually does have some salt content and actual salt in it, research has shown that the body actually processes this differently, and it could be due to the soy fermentation process, and it doesn't have the negative effects on your body, and it doesn't have the effects that regular salt has. So things like stomach cancer, etc., show totally different results when eating miso as opposed to regular salt. So I like adding miso paste. It adds a beautiful umami flavor, and you don't need too much of this either. It kind of has a bit of a cheesy overtone every now and then as well, so even combining this with some tahini or sesame paste gives a beautiful cheesy flavor, a salty umami cheesy flavor. So it's great to use in dips and in different condiments, and just to flavor up your soups or curries, anything like that. Miso paste is great to use. Next up, I like to use fresh lemon juice. So I've actually frozen some of my lemon juice into little ice cubes and then put them into a Ziploc bag. It's a great way to store lemon juice if you have a lot of lemons on hand and you've squeezed the juice and you don't want to use it all in one go. Store it in the freezer, put it into some ice cube trays, and then pop them out into a Ziploc bag, and it's perfect to store them that way and use them as you need them. So I've got some of the lemon juice here, but it's great just to squeeze some fresh lemon juice at the end of cooking. So if you've just made a salad, or even if you have a soup or a curry, anything like that, put that fresh citrus over at the end, and it really adds an extra layer of flavor. And it also engages certain parts of your palate, so you don't need to have that extra salt. It'll engage those different sections of the palate to give you a full mouthfeel, and you don't need the added salt. So in a similar way to the lemon juice, to engage those different sections of the palate, you can also use herbs and spices. So things like chili or chili flakes, again, engages different parts of the palate. So if you add chili flakes onto your dishes or fresh chili at the end, by eating that, it actually makes you feel like you're having something salty, even though the salt is not there. So next time you cook, give it a try. Also, different types of pepper. So black pepper, white pepper, again, they engage different sections of your palate. So by incorporating all of these different ingredients, you're going to give that full mouthfeel and those flavors, and you're not going to miss the salt, because this will actually engage the sections of your palate that the salt would normally engage. So give those a try. The next thing I like to use is nutritional yeast flakes. So these are commercially produced, but I get the non-fortified versions, and it adds a cheesy flavour again, a nice umami flavour, and it usually also has some B vitamins in there. So if you do see that it has B12 in here, it's a great little substitute for B12 spray or taking some B12 supplements. You can also use this to increase your vitamin B12 levels. So nutritional yeast flakes, fantastic on top of salads, in sauces, in dips, anything creamy that you want to make. Absolutely delicious, and it adds a salty umami flavour. And next up, I like to use Nori sheets. So Nori sheets are made from seaweed. They are usually the sheets that are used to roll sushi rolls. So if you've been to Japanese restaurants or you've eaten sushi before, it's usually wrapped in Nori sheets. And these are fantastic. You can crumble them up over salads. You can put them into soups. You can even pulse this up into a powder form. If you have a blender, pulse it up, and then it'll add a nice flavour to whatever you use this on in powder form as well. So you can mix it into soups, you can mix it into stews, you can, if you're making a bread batter, mix it into that as well. It adds a really interesting flavour. So experiment with using Nori sheets. You can even just fold it up, crumble it up, you can cut it up into pieces with some scissors, and it's really easy to use and really delicious. So I really like to use this in my salads, and it just adds another level of flavour that to me just tastes so much better than adding regular salt. So definitely give Nori sheets a try. Next up, I like to juice different things that have a salty content, natural salty flavour. So things like celery. If I have excess celery on hand, I will just juice it and keep it in the fridge, or again, put it in the freezer into ice cube trays and keep those little ice cubes on hand. So if you want something salty in your soup or in a stew, etc., then the natural juice from celery tastes salty. So when you think, if you chop up celery and you put it into your soups and you cook it, over time that those flavors release as you're stewing, as you're cooking, and it adds a salty flavor. So if you are ever going to add salt, add it at the end of your cooking, because you don't want the salty flavor to just cook out and then you have to add more at the end, because it's still going to retain the sodium content. You want that fresh flavor. So it's always best, if you are going to use salt, to put it on at the end of cooking, or just as you're about to serve it, just a tiny sprinkle of it. And make sure it's a better quality salt, not just a regular table salt. Use something like a pink Himalayan salt or a coarse Celtic sea salt. I like to use the coarse Celtic sea salt because I don't need much of it if I do use it. But using celery or celery juice, it's a great way to add some natural saltiness to your meals without actually adding salt. The other thing I like to use is the juice from carrots. It's really high in nutrients and it's slightly sweet, but it also brings out the saltiness of other ingredients that you're cooking with. So again, I like to use carrot juice in things like dressings. I can mix it with some other things, maybe even some of these other ingredients, to make a really amazing dressing that will bring out that salty flavor without adding salt. And again, tomatoes, depending on where you are in the world, juicing these is also a great option. Again, it adds that sweetness and that little bit of saltiness. So tomatoes do naturally have a bit of a salty flavor, and juicing them really concentrates that flavor, and it's amazing to use in soups, stews, curries, even in dressings if you want something fresh as well. So keep those on hand, keep the juice on hand, and you'll be amazed at the beautiful flavors, the fresh flavors that you can bring into your food. And then finally, I like to use some onions, some garlic, and some green onions, or even some chives, all those types of things. They belong to the same family. Even leeks, they add a beautiful your umami type flavor, and again they add that nice richness to your cooking. And even using them fresh on top of your meals, or garlic blended into dressings, it adds a really pungent flavor, and when it's combined with other ingredients, it really makes your food delicious. So experiment with those as well. And the dried versions of these act just as nicely, but not as pungent. So you could use your dried garlic, you could use your dried onion flakes. They really add a lot of flavor without needing salt. So there you have it. They're my 7 things that I like to use instead of salt. Again, you can buy commercial brands of some blends as well that are salt-free, and they'll make use of herbs and spices and different things like that to substitute the salt flavor as well. So you could go and buy some of those, but I just like to have these on hand and use them in my cooking pretty much every day. And they add nutrition, they add lots of flavor, lots of freshness, and especially using fresh herbs on top of whatever you're cooking. Chop them up just before serving, sprinkle them on top, some lemon juice, some chili. It will make it really, really delicious. And so give them a try and let me know what you think, and leave in the comments below if you have some other salt substitutes that you like to use, and I would love to see what you use there as well. So come on over and join me in my Facebook group where we share lots of tips like this, and you can share photos of what you're cooking. I would love to see what your creations are. Just search for Cooking with Plants on Facebook, and I have lots of links below as well, so you can join my newsletter so you don't miss any of my recipes or tips and tricks that I like to share, because I really love teaching whole food, plant-based cooking, but the easy way. Ways to get simple flavors in, health and nutrition, and getting our bodies very energized and healthy. So I hope you like these tips for today, and I look forward to seeing you for the next recipe. Bye for now.